operated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Indian Education. Here is what the election code says. Local community school board, members of a local community school board who are elected pursuant to the Navajo Nation election code. Local community school board members include those members elected to the governing boards of schools operated or funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIE, for the education of Navajo children within the Navajo Nation, but does not include members of the school boards for private, parochial, and state public schools. 11 NNC Section 1X. 4. When and how often is the school board apportionment plan adopted? The election code requires that school board apportionment plans be adopted every 4 years. Here is the law from the election code. On or before the first Monday of November 2003 and every 4 years thereafter, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee of the Navajo Nation Council shall set the size of each local community school board and shall apportion the number of school board seats among the chapter and chapters represented in each local community school board. This apportionment shall establish election precincts for each local community school board containing approximately equal numbers of students attending the local community school at the time of the apportionment. 11 NNC Section 11B cited in part. 5. What does consultation mean for purposes of developing and adopting a school board apportionment plan? In the development of a school board apportionment plan, there is the requirement of consultation. Essentially, the election code defines consultation as follows. Consultation means notice of the proposed school board apportionment plan and an opportunity to comment on the proposed apportionment plan. Consultation period, 60 days. There is a consultation period that runs for at least 60 days. During this time, public input is provided for, as well as hearings and opportunity to submit written comments. Public input. There must be opportunity for input provided to the Navajo Board of Election Supervisors, parents, local school boards, chapters, school board organizations such as agency school boards, and the Navajo Division of Diné Education. This input can be either in writing or through oral testimony. Hearings. Although hearings are not required, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee can hold hearings at the schools, chapters, communities, or agencies affected by the proposed reapportionment plan. If hearings are held, there can be reasonable restrictions imposed at these hearings, such as length of time of testimony, 11 NNC Section 1H. Written comments. Written comments can be provided by those that are interested in submitting them. 6. How many members can make up a school board? 3 to 7 members. Here is what the election code says. A local community school board shall consist of not less than 3 nor more than 7 members based upon the current adopted apportionment plan. 11 NNC Section 11A. 7. Who must approve a school board apportionment plan? Under the Navajo Nation Election Code, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee of the Navajo Nation Council approves the final school board apportionment plan. 11 NNC Section 11B. 8. What happens after the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee approves and adopts a school board apportionment plan? It is submitted to the Navajo Board of Election Supervisors for use in the elections. 11 NNC Section 11E. So that was provided by the our Office of Legislative Counsel. Mr. So, can you pull up your agenda again?
He's trying to log back on.
Okay. So for this public hearing, I believe at the local level at the chapter today, they gave each individual 5 minutes. Can somebody confirm that? Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Mayor, I'll keep time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. So. So number 3, we have the presentation of Navajo Nation School Board Apportionment Plan, which was adopted by HEHSCAP-05-20. Mr. So, when you get a chance, if you could, for the callers online, provide that information on your screen. And then 4, we'll go to the public hearing guidelines. Is Ms. Benali, the legislative advisor, on the line?
She stepped out. She's logging on.
Okay, Mr. So, how much time did you give each individual at the chapter to provide any comments?
Well, it depends on the number of speakers that we have. Here at Tuba City for the public hearing, even though we set a guideline of at least 3 to 5 minutes, as long as people are respectful of each other's time, we can try to have as much comment and feedback on the apportionment plan as much as possible. But I believe that the guideline that we have is at least a maximum of 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We will use that same guideline, 3 to 5 minutes with a maximum of 5 minutes. If you are wanting to provide a comment, please, on the screen, please raise your hand. And also, when we turn the floor over to you, if you could, please state your name, your community or chapter, and then we can recognize you. And that's for our records so that we can have staff, write these down and get the comments. What we can also do is there is a website that was set up for this apportionment comments, and that website is, one second here. That website is schoolboard@navajo-nsn.gov. So that's SCHOOLBOARD at Navajo, NAVAJO -NSN.gov. So if you have written comments, please email those out to that website. And I believe the advertisement of this public hearing also indicated where written communication can be sent to. And I believe Mr. So can also add that address on the screen there. At this time, I will turn the floor over to whoever presented at the chapter. Also, for the record, do we have any, I see Honorable Vice Chair Carl Slater on the line. And I don't know if there's any other council delegates on the line right now. Vice Chair Slater, is there anything you would like to add before we move on?
No, thank you, Mr. Rico.
Thank you, Honorable Slater, and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. So.
Thank you. All right, let's proceed with the presentation of the apportionment plan. The plan that you see before you is the plan that was adopted by the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, and it's called Plan 6. So the first item that you see on your screen are the 2 school boards that are listed for Central Navajo Agency. And as you can see, the first school board is called Central Navajo Schools K-12. It's going to be a 5-member board with the following schools: Rocky Ridge Boarding School, Cottonwood Day School, and Many Farms High School. It's a 5-member board with the following school board seats. The first up is Chinle Chapter, 1 board member, 2 board members representing Many Farms Chapter, 1 at-large representing Round Rock, Sedgeisha, Rough Rock chapters. And the last seat in that school board is 1 at-large representing Touchy, Blue Gap, Whippoorwill, Setlani, Cottonwood chapters. And the second school board in the Central Navajo Agency is called Chinle Navajo Schools K-12. It's a 5-member board, and the school boards listed in that school board group are Black Mesa Community School, Rough Rock Community School, Nazlini Community School, Lakachugay Community School, Penyon Community School, and Many Farms Community School. It's a 5-member board with the following configuration: 1 at-large with Lakachugay, Saley, Wheatfields, Grand Rock chapters, the 1 at-large with Sedge, Isha, Rough Rock, Many Farms chapters, 1 board member representing Chinle chapter, 1 at-large with Hard Rock, Pinyon, Forest Lake, Black Mesa chapters. The last one is 1 at-large with Whippoorwill, Touchy, Blue Gap, Nazlini, Setlani, Cottonwood chapters. Total number of school boards is 10 board members for the Chinle Agency. The next agency is Eastern Navajo Agency. The first school board group is called Shashkatwa Schools K-12, and that's a 5-member board. The following schools are included in that school board group, and that's Bread Springs Day School, Chichika Jones Ranch Community School, and Wingate K-12, which is both the elementary school and the high school. It's a 5-member board with the following configuration: 1 at-large with Chichika, Bahale, Tsetlichi, Nanilija, Tseyato chapters. 1 board member will represent Church Rock chapter, 1 board member will represent Ayambato chapter, and then 1 at-large at Pinedale, Mariano Lake chapters, and 1 at-large at Theru, Baca Prewood, Smith Lake chapters. The next school board is called East Oza Crown Point Schools, which is a 5-member board with the following schools: Baca Goyaja Community School, Lake Valley Navajo School, Tse'ahe Community School, Mariano Lake Community School, Debeyaja Habitin, Brega Pass School, Ojo Encino Day School, Pueblo Pintado Community School, East Oza Be'ofta Community School. It's a 5-member board with the following board seats: 1 board member representing Baca Prewood chapter, 1 at-large at Pinedale, Mariano Lake, Smith Lake, Theru chapters, 1 at-large at Te'ahe, Nahodishki, Lake Valley, White Rock, and chapters, 1 at-large board member representing Councilor Ojo Encino, Pueblo Pintado chapters, and 1 at-large board member representing Vicente, Little Water, Casimiro Lake, White Horse Lake chapters. The next school board group is called Eastern Navajo Schools, and that's a 5-member board. That 5-member board is comprised of the following schools: Natlashin Victorian Day School, Zeth Naudethi Community School, Hana Glen Community Schools Dormitory. It's a 5-member board with the following school board configuration: 2 board members representing Torion chapter, 2 board members representing Werfeno chapter, and 1 board member representing Naihisi chapter. The next school board is Alamo Navajo School Board. It's a 5-member board with all 5 board members coming out of Alamo. The next school board is Rema Navajo School Board, or Pine Hill School. It's a 5-member board with all 5 board members coming out of Rema. The last school board in Eastern is Tohajula Community School. It's a 5-member school board with all 5 coming out of Tohajula chapters. The total number of school board members for Eastern is 30. The next school board group, the next agency is Fort Defiance Agency. And the first school board group is called Sehotoe Fort Defiance School 1. It's a 5-member board, and it's going to be comprised of the following schools: Pine Springs Day School, Seba Dalkai Boarding School, Jetas Elementary School, and Crystal Boarding School. It's a 5-member board with the following board seats: 1 at-large at Red Lake Crystal chapters, 1 with chapter, 1 with Lugano chapter, 1 board member representing Tisto chapter, and 1 at-large representing Lupton, Hawk, Ahat chapters. And the next school board group is called Sehotsoy number 2, Fort Defiance Schools, and that's a 5-member board. And that board is going to be overseeing Hunters Point Boarding School, White Ruins Community School, Kendathachi Otka, Dilcon Community School, Gracewood Springs Community School, Chushgray Community School, Tisa Ken Residential Hall, and Winslow Residential Hall. It's a 5-member board with the following board seats. 1 at-large representing Nashchiti, Tohatchi, County Cannon, Bahaspa, Mexican Springs chapters. The next one is 1 at-large board member representing Fort Defiance and St. Michael's chapters. The next board seat is representing Oak Springs, Hawk, Lupton, Nahat Adzil, and White Ruins chapters. The 4th board seat in that school board is 1 at-large representing Steamboat, Kendathachi or Kintachi, Ganado, Clyde, Gato, Cornfields, and White Ruins chapters. And the last school board seat in that group is 1 at-large representing Gracewood Springs, Whitecone, Dilcone, Jedito, and Tistos chapter. The total number of board members is 10 out of Fort Defiance Agency. The next school board or next agency is Northern Navajo Agency. The first school board group is called Northern Navajo Schools. It's a 5-member board with the following schools: Cove Day School, Sanasti Day School, Baclavado Day School, Twahala Community School, Aneth Community School, Tisnaspas Community School, Nanahanzat Community School, and Red Rock Day School. It's a 5-member board with the following configuration. 1 at-large board member will represent Aneth, Red Mesa, Tuacacan, Mexican Water chapters. The next school board seat is an at-large seat representing Tisnaspas, Baclavado, Gariahe, Tuacoa, and Setacan chapters. The next school board is an at-large seat representing Cove, Red Valley chapters. The next school board seat is an at-large seat representing Sanasti, Tuber Hills, Tuadlena, and Newcomb chapters. And the last seat is 1 at-large seat representing Shiprock, Ninahanzat, Upper Fruitland, and San Juan chapters. The next school board group is called Natanina Schools K-12, and that's a 5-member board. That 5-member board is going to be overseeing the following schools: Shiprock Associated Schools, Kinskaya Residential Campus, Sensadis Aha, Denebe or Rock Point Community School. It's a 5-member board with the following configuration. 2 board members will be representing, will be from Shiprock chapter, 1 at-large from Rock Point and Round Rock chapters. Be sure to note that Round Rock is in Chinle, but there were enough students apparently that Round Rock was incorporated as part of the representation from Rock Point. The next at-large seat is representing Gariahe, Tuacoa, Tzedakon, Hogback chapters. And the last seat is 1 at-large with Sanasti, Tuger Hills, Tuatlena, Newcomb chapters. And the last school board is Navajo Preparatory School, and that's a 4-member board that's comprised of the following seats: 1 at-large with Northern Navajo Agency, 1 at-large with Eastern Navajo Agency, 1 at-large with Fort Defiance Agency, and 1 at-large with Chinle, Navajo, Chinle Western agencies. The total number of school boards is 14. And the last one is Western Navajo Agency. It has 3 school board groups in this area. So the first school board group is called Tonnanas. This is Tuba City Schools 1, K-12. It's a 5-member board with the following schools: Denahotso Boarding School, Tonalia Day School, Kaibito Boarding School, Kayenta Community School, and Tuba City Boarding School. It's a 5-member board with the following school board seats: 2 at-large at Tonalia, Tonanisteza chapters, 1 at-large at Sabikin and Kaibito chapters, then 1 at-large at Badaway Gap, Coal Mine, and Coppermine Canyon and Cameron chapters. And the last is 1 at-large at Kayenta, Oljeto, Denahotso, Chimbido chapters. The next school board group is called the Tonanas. This is Tuba City Schools 2, K-12, and it's a 5-member board. And this school board will be overseeing Little Singer Community School, Nazis On Community School, Chimbido Community School, Quintana Border Town Dormitory, Loeb Schools Incorporated, Gray Hills Academy High School, and Shanto Preparatory School. It's a 5-member board with the following school board seats: 2 at-large representing Tonalia and Tonanistiza chapters, 1 at-large at Sabikin, Kaipito chapters and Shanto chapters. Then 1 at-large to Kayenta, Oljeto, Denohoto, Chichimpido, and Natis on chapters. And the last school board seat is representing Luke, Sidituo, Bird Springs, Tuolani Lake chapters. And the last school board is Richfield Residential Hall, and it's a 4-member board with the following configuration. 1 at-large with Tornanes Bottomwood Gap chapters. 1 at-large representing Kayenta, Denohoto chapters. 1 at-large representing Oljeto Rough Rock chapters, and 1 at-large with Lichi, Kaipito, and Natis on Shanto chapters. Total number of board members at Western is 14. And that is the apportionment plan, Plan 6 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. So. Does that complete your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay, at this time, we can open the floor. If there are no other comments from any delegates on the line, we can open the floor to the public. And you have 3 to 5 minutes. Please state your name, your community or chapter, and you'll have 3 to 5 minutes. Mr. So, is there anything that I might have missed that happened at the chapter today?
No, just that basically we asked that all the comments be, am I speaking? Oh yeah. We asked that your comments be not be derogatory, because all comments are considered public record. And again, we asked that you state your name, your organization or chapter represented for the record. And again, state your comment. And that is it.
Thank you, Mr. So. So at this time, I have a Frank, I can't pronounce the last name. Chiapetti. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rico and Mr. So for helping with my name. My name is Frank Chiapetti. I'm principal of Chuskai Community School, who represents educational needs of District 14 and District 18. I'm here to speak on behalf of the school. The historical District 14 fought very hard to have a local community school, going with the Public Law 100-297 to get local control. We find that this is going to take local control away. Our current school board, 5-member school board, representing 2 from Tohatchee, since that is where 70% of our students come from, 1 from Nuschitty, 1 from Twin Lakes, and then 1 at-large member representing Coyote Canyon in District 14, Mexican Springs in District 14, and the 5 chapters in District 18. Very local control. This new reapportionment plan number 6 takes away the local control. As you've shown, the current makeup of Plan 6, District 14 will have 1 school board member. So 70%, or actually 90% of our students, over 90% of our students will be represented by 1 school board member. 1 at-large, Fort Defiance and St. Michael's chapter, which will make up 6-7% of our students. 1 at-large member from Oak Springs, Houck, Lupton. We currently have 1 student from that area. 1 at-large from Steamboat, Ganado, Clegato, Cornfields, Wide Runs. We have 0 students. We do not represent that area. And 1 at-large for Greasewood Springs, Whitecone, 0. So it's taken the local control down by 100% of our students being represented by local community members, meeting the local community need, and going to 1 solid board member and then 1 for 8 to 10 students, taking that away. So it definitely takes away the local control from our chapters. And I know some of our chapters have and not even heard of this until we took it to them over the last week. The school's never been asked for input from our council delegate or anyone. And we've been asking a lot of questions. What are the directions? Do we have one large board member with all these schools? We're ending up becoming a public school system representing close to 5,000 square miles, the way it's looking. And do we travel? Are all of our budgets stayed the same? Who pays for the board members' training? Is it split, or each of us paying stipends? None of that can be answered. So the cart, we feel, has been really put before the horse. But ultimately, we feel we're here to meet the needs of District 14. That is what the community chose to do by doing a Public Law 100.297 school. And this takes away the current release says on or before the first Monday of November, the HESA committee with Navajo Nation Council shall size each local community school board. Everything in that law says local community school board, but we're not going to be local anymore. Winslow, Holbrook, Jeddito, Ganado. We all know that's different than Tohatchee, Mexican Springs, Coyote Canyon, Twin Lakes. We'll be serving multiple needs and multiple state laws in addition to the federal law. So it's very tough. And I know they say that we just follow federal law, but our school board policy currently states that we do follow New Mexico school law and federal law, and we're trying to do both. But unfortunately, 4 of our board members will be from Arizona. It's a total different ball of wax. So just letting you know, we appreciate the input, and we're very much against diluting the public control of our school board. Kaha.
Thank you, Mr. Chipetti, for your comments and concerns. Okay, let's, I have Darlene Pino.
Oh, yate.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. Yate, Donaldsko, the Noltangi, the Noltangi. Shade, Darlene Pino, Shiedo, I didn't that she was just chindo, Kiani, she check, put it in the Senate. Chishe was just chin. Did the school board, yeah, one dolly, the Putobayat. First of all, I'm the Natisan chapter vice president. To go community members, our community, the actual community members, and Niki Yaltigi, Adi, Salansa Bantiskins, Nahabantiskins. Ako did lady Toku Oshin, Ultra. The school board, Ajitana has to Kubishin Nanishatayilla. Adding that principal, though superintendent, though Adi, Ashistahan, though Ado Dainish, Ako late not any just not any bachelor go with the chapter. Adi, Asanat lady Adi, Juana Alta, Adi Yata Ati. Adi give by Hatotzi, Kito Adi, Ashi in the chapter, Jinda she chapter house is the Adi, Atlasali, Tiba City, Ado Quishin that is station. A Koti Isi Mato Masane, Chidan Lini, Lady Ice baby photo, Nakila Ayu Hashing Topahat, then Halo this. Akoti she atra kakun haho ato hato bayat alkido hato bansata canstro hoton haho ako school board shila tanlek at ta isa shilo na khaban sis kens ko ya ti ultra kiki elchine je aya sepetete in someone sis kens ako ashin neti de apportionment ho yang do usual kedan kinat ani holya kushi 110 council de aroya aya il kelo 84 do hosten ya na sikat 24 就是akadna kit ya go te na do ni hola John de I said the local control nini no be yel tiki it's I need it no go ya community members the local control dolly school board in al kiddos ari local control school board akwai da yo leso ya hashin so go ato asai alti بكي الكينا ألطهنا لو خز بالخز شيله وتوشين هذا كجو إياه أصلا تلاقي عادة قلت خشين تسوق بدأت يا يلتقي community members and لينجي أجاكو local control عجب لك يسألك كي بنتزرنسن خالن خالشني دون هذا شيء كي قلت خز أنا بالنشأ قلت تاليا هذا نالتها بالنشأ قلت ده بس جهنتي school board ينتقى school board خاني لا تناهز هذا من قلت خاليا ده نيدا الشينيكي بالنشأ هذا شيء ده مثلا تنلني شيء ويش تسويه شيء قلت بني أكون شناقو قلت خالي وجوه قلت تاليا الكتان هي boarding school days do short 18 il tende kade ako nihinago nihilcha nahalchne do nihitsuya da ko trasa da kha kon nihigi nihi amaro ajeto masane do je ari nar kirgi ari nit kiki tenne nit lo sani nit lenigi nahalchne ol trage ebelek eselego yat foto na kan khaba antes kan skoti the apportionment ko to ke at 또 그것이 야타다가 또 그것이 the council 또 그것이 chapters representative 이게 또 시고 또 하던네 또 바야트 퀸트 hala asla 그것이 타다 봐 아로비야 이니에 카타가 하도 예실다 할나 그것도야 the community members keep like in to listo in the community members show ya shilla to trashete illa nozing school board in al kido go to ya shwogo na hala to 그거 시 아이스 나 샤이렛 is to Alamo New Mexico 아리 나 샤 존데 과야 나티스 아데 그디니스트라 아코도 야 하신 쓰고 뒤에 portion 미기 거의 사 이슬라도 해
Thank you, Ms. Pino, for that, for those comments and concerns. Next, I have, I believe it's Bahanjan Kinzel.
Yes, that's right.
You have the floor.
Okay. Yat she bahajon Nicole Kinsel Gishi and Shia Twitch eating Nishle, but Ani Bashichi, Tabahad Dashiche, Ashihin Dashanale, Natsan Det Nasha. I'm currently the Kaibito boarding school board president here in Kaibito, Arizona. And I just wanted to state our position on this. Our board saw this resolution before the election year last year. And we didn't understand why this resolution was being proposed. I say this only because right now, or the past 4 or 5 years, I have been on this board. We have faced a lot of hardship as school board members. You know, my board has been very active in ensuring the progress and improvement of our students here at Kaibito Boarding School and the surrounding students in our area. we have tried many times to work with the BIE, since we are a BIE funded school. And it is hard because we don't have an official EPA supervisor overlooking our school. And that's located over in Window Rock. That was taken away from us. And not having them in our area here in Tuba City, that hurt us a lot. And in order to get things done, in order to improve our school, that has been the hardest thing for us to overcome in trying to progress and help our children academically. By doing this, by turning this into a 5 board for all this entire area, you are taking away the voices of the people. If you do this, if there's, I saw the listing where there's only be one at large for certain areas to be on that board. If there's one person that runs and is selected, let's say from Shanto or Kaibito, how are they to know what is going on within those other communities? They won't know. And that's where the voices of the people, the students, the children are going to be taken away. You won't know what's happening within that school. And that's going to make things even worse. We're already trying to improve our schools with the Bureau. And by doing this, it's going to be another rock trying to climb. And, we already face a lot more things with different boards. I've heard from other boards that people, they favor families, that maybe that can happen. There's a lot of things that you have to consider when you think about this resolution that you're trying to push forth or recommendation. And I think that the base of it all, you have to remember, are our children. Our students are in these schools. We have to make sure that we have people here on ground zero that are very familiar with what is happening within this school environment and with the environment around them. We have to have eyes and ears on ground here in order for school boards to speak on their behalf. That's the only way it'll happen. Other than that, it's gonna get lost. It's not gonna be priority. And that's something that we're gonna face if this goes through. So our school board has already drafted a resolution against this. We don't support this at all. And I do believe that our voices need to be heard, continue to be heard, and not to be taken away from this. But thank you for listening and giving me the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Kinzel, for those comments and your concerns for your community and your school. I don't have anyone else with their hand up on Zoom. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the topic of the Navajo Nation School Board Apportionment Plan, Plan 6?
I can go next. My name is Lisa Baijo.
Okay, Mrs. Baijo, the floor is yours. You have 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, I am the business manager for Richfield Springs Community School. I was very curious about this when I saw that in the Navajo Times last Thursday. So, from Steamboat area, but I work here in Greasewood. I kind of relate to what everyone's saying so far, but the main thing as a business manager, what I'm really concerned about is our funding. I hope the nation oversees how they're going to give out the funding to all our schools on behalf of our children. Virtual learning is here to stay. One of our biggest concern is the broadband technology. That's the lack of it on the reservation. If we still can't provide that to this day, how are we going to do this whole plan about appropriation-mint plan? Because the funding is given to each federal, tribal, public law 100-297 schools. And we each have business managers that oversee these plans. And we work closely with our leaders, which is our principal superintendent or CEOs, depending on the different titles, along with our board members. And we share the information with them and we make plans for the school, for the students to continue. So who's going to pay for the board? How are we going to provide training? On top of that, how do we go about all this current laws that we are following under Public Law 100-297? And what about jobs for the rest of the community if we're going to centralize the whole schools under only 1 or 5? So there's a lot of questions that come to my mind as I sit here and think about what I read in the Navajo Times since Thursday, remembering when I was a little girl when people talked about this and learning about how my nation is now going to be going towards this. And I did research the HESI 0520. I just Googled it. It brought it all up along with the Public Law 297. I'm doing my own researches right now to see if it's worth it to still continue when this particular plan goes into effect, because it's going to affect my job at that point. And where do I go from there? And that's what I hope to plant in each and every one of your minds and in your hearts. I hope you plan this correctly and you think about everyone, especially our students. Right now, our students really need technology. We got a lot of fundings for that, yes, and we're doing our best to provide that for our students today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baijo, for those comments and questions. Are there any other individuals who would like to comment on the topic?
Yes, I would like to.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and the organization, chapter, or community that you'll be speaking for. The floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, for the record, my name is Roy Lee. I am a former school board member for Shanto Preparatory School. Although the organization and school board association that I'm associated with is Native American Grant School Association. Ako tidigi public hearing hatno bane klinana tidigi oyo doshit anida. Why? My concern is, why are we doing this when it's inaccessible for others? I wish it would be done in the evening time, rather than during the workday. And I took a few moments out of my work schedule just to be on this conference. It would be nice to accommodate in towards the evening time. But DOT ashin the neck echo, ado ask eshabalaganic echo. Ado dirigito to shit need a plan 6 at Ninigi. Lay washing don degi bez ani. No, a 100-297 be a local control hatna. AIEC that lay local grassroots level, the chapter level, the community level. So to me, the way I look at it, this is being rushed through from the Navajo Nation. And I do support local control. I do support the grassroots level. I believe that the Navajo Nation should leave it to the local level. And that I just don't agree with how the Department of Education is heavily involved in this. Ani Dodi Otka Niniki yes Watanda. A Argent Title 10, they up at Bigestia. These school boards had Ninigi A Title 11. That's a different governing law. A Kwajo election administration AIEC Ajabansala. To me, that's a segregation of duty. When the Navajo Nation Department of Education wants to start controlling school board members, to me, they need to stay in their lane. This case. Although, yes, I do support local control. And that's what is given to us as a given right under Public Law 100-297. And other tribes have attempted to take something like this approach. The smaller tribes, yes, it worked for them, but for us, it's not going to work. If you come to Western Agency and you look at Plan 6, Shanto Preparatory School is going to be grouped with Navajo Mountain, Gray Hills, Little Singer, Flagstaff Dormitory, Richfield, and the Hadashin Utopia. Oko Halate, not supposed to have that. There's Ani in that. So to me, I'm in opposition of this proposal of Plan 6 and give it back to the local communities. Give it back to the local chapters. Let them be in charge of it. The Navajo Nation, yes, we're a sovereign nation, but at the same time, as school board members, we took that oath of office to uphold and abide by the laws of the Navajo Nation. And so the Navajo Nation needs to just leave these schools alone. Believe me, the Navajo Nation could have been doing something else than doing something like this. We've seen how the Head Start was run into the ground. Now it's slowly building back up. And it's going to affect every school. It's going to affect everything. And it's just better to leave it local control. I'm thinking about my fellow colleagues. I'm in support of local control and keep it the way it is.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for those comments and your concerns. Let me see. Who else. Are there any other individuals who would like to speak on the topic of the Navajo Nation School Board Apportionment Plan, Plan 6? Are there anyone else on the line who would like to speak on the apportionment plan, Plan 6? Going once? Okay, I have somebody raising their hand. It just says Galaxy S9.
Yes, Yate. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We can hear you. For the record, just please state your name, the community or organization that you are speaking for. Thank you.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Christine Wallace in Shiedo, Ken Dasachi Ulta, the school board member in Ako, the Plan 6 at Ninigi Kodo Art Sobahatisi. ado ade bahata sotsiki shilta ahut abansas case. Sheya bansas case so eya dida local control hatnene eik at nature in kits aquatna what are eya di kodo planiki what are eya nish esha ado public hearings hatno what are eya pinya eya Navajo Times be eya advertisement ilia akonde behas ani Winderrock Court that no eya Hesse was given the direction to provide public notice to the public. I've just seen that this notice was posted until the 18th of August. That means that we're only given, the community is only given at least 45 days to make public comment. To me, that is not enough time to provide information to my community. I represent 5 chapters from my school. And it would have been more appropriate for me to be given more time to present this information to my chapters that I represent. Second of all, the information posted is not accurate as well. I tried calling into these numbers, but I wasn't able to log in the phone numbers that were posted. So proper information, proper public information should be posted. And then second of all, once you do start combining schools, that's going to affect a lot of our policies that are within these schools. Not all policies are consistent. Earlier, I heard a business manager indicate that our policies, are they going to all be just one policy? Because once you start changing policies, then you're going to have to start changing the federal policies as well in order to be consistent with all the other combined schools that you have, will say, for instance, for defined agency. And then you're also going to be mixing schools with residential schools. How are you going to be combining these policies? I'm hoping that someone has already looked into how some of these policies are going to have to change at the local level. Not only policies affecting the operation, but policies also affecting our finances, our funding. So those are areas of concern that I have as a school board member. And then I also see that, I'm for one school board member, they're going to have to be representing, say, 5 communities. And a lot of these chapters are also certified chapters. So how is that representation going to happen for chapters that are not certified and certified chapters? Are we as one board members allowed to go to another chapter and provide information to get support? Is that how this is going to happen, or how is that going to work? So I see a lot of inconsistencies. This is not a good plan that has been put in place. I hope that they do have a plan that they haven't provided. In addition to that, what other plans were there? Were there other additional plans that we need to present to our community? I would like for my chapter to also be informed of this, not only in the Navajo Times, but information should be presented at our chapter at the community level. The parents need to be made aware of these changes. Right now, all they can do is just read the advertisement, and I don't think that's proper notification. So I would encourage all chapters within each of the agencies to get supporting resolutions from your chapter houses. This is what we need to do as school board members, to let them know what the plan is. We need to get supporting resolution from our chapters. Not only our chapters, but we also have our district council. We also have our agency council. So for anyone that's listening out there, I would go to our chapters and get that support letter regarding this Plan 6. So I appreciate giving me the time to state my concerns regarding this this Plan 6. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace, for those comments and your concerns for Chinle. I have Ms. Pino up again, but I want to, before we go back around, I want to give time to make sure we have enough time given to everyone to provide any comments. Is there anyone new that would like to speak on the apportionment plan, Plan 6?
I would like to say something.
Okay, is this Rudy John?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Mr. John, just, for the record, state your name, your community, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yate, my name is Rudy John. I'm from the Delcon community representing Tisakin Residential Hall. Plan 6, reapportionment. Called Haila Hayulan Soye, Francis case, Haquis Kandashin by Yetio. Hahol Jij, Adon the Tae, at the Isnil. Adon the Tae Neche, not Isnil. A call Alchin no Satle Alchiniaj, Tilke, Jake. The Nebeke had a his agent. Don't do that, Eon Sakesta. Halit on Hinat Ala. Nihinat Ani La Ita Nila. Halit on Hinat Nihinada Hatest Ala. Dots Etanzunda. Mahajo by the Neko. A cohorti, Quabanit Enigi. Do I action bidet ita peso ede ni najin at tsaini don ngai kon yadat ede ad oh ha huge in dast oh ha huge na action arola yo Dentle Ado Pata Ultai. Sap Papilacana Yaja Aja Yata Ultra. Ako Plan 6 Ede Yae Ndit Ado Be Lansli Ako Yeah the Hans Tanigi Beshmasan Ado Election Administration Board of Election. That's about Shin the Hollow. It's okay, but Nalikeda at the Hollow. Joe Ileko. Ako Shisazindo Mansas Keso Shespelt Eda. Adiaha Ika. I don't did the Ea Halchin, the Alka no Satin Zenigi. Ede Yae Hajo Bahadot, Alto Hajo. Benia. Nihinat atil nisa ba ohtolel khashin zate khashina lange ndas kotolel akoto nesigita do ben yel chatnit eda bilakana kahonsi kes oje hot ayenadnish nihi kujnavahu nihit nenigi edo yalchadet eda akwa besata tneshik el khasi loko Hajogo yat Hashit at Hagit Lord Hada. That's so yen not okas. I don't know so net Nandole. Oh, Hayujan does it. Basin Sakis at Ebeta in Shahok at Oh, Hayujan do Shahot Eda Shahot Side, Hot Eda Ako Shinanta, no Senigi Hajoman Sokis. Ahot on Hayat Eko, Nihidit is ya Kinja, Ashindanja, do A Ultrata, residential program, Winslow, Flagstaff, we're not any different from Richfield and Navajo Prep. Why are some of those schools being favored? Just because one council delegate or one board member didn't fulfill his term, or you're considered a satellite, Toachile, Alamo, Rama. If you're going to make changes, do it across the board for everybody. Be fair.
Thank you, Mr. John, for those comments and recommendations. Do we have anyone else at this time who would like to speak? Okay, I have someone new. It says Dillard.
Yes, Dillard Curley. I'm with Kaibito Boarding School Board Secretary.
Okay, what was your last name again?
Dillard Curley.
Dillard Curley. Okay, thank you, Mr. Curley. The floor is yours. You have 3 to 5 minutes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Dillard Curley Nishan. Yeah, then I touch sheet in Nishan. Close on the bus chain. So I'm currently the secretary of Kaibito School Board, and I just wanted to go ahead and provide my comments. I'd like to go ahead and echo all my colleagues' comments that were mentioned today. Yes, I am also in opposition of this plan. I also do feel that this plan has been rushed into Navajo Nation because apparently we need to get something done. It was ill thought of, and I think you guys need to go back to the drawing board and actually think this through. Currently, this we need to have local control by centralizing all of the schools into one location. Is just going to basically do the same thing as what currently, since Kaibito is the BIE school and operate under BIE, and we don't have an EPA out here to actually overlook and oversee the entire schools and making sure that they actually operate, the administrators that are actually operating according to what they're supposed to be operating to, we're going to see the same thing. You know, the boards are all going to be overseeing multiple schools. They're going to be left out. They're not going to have front-hand information and pretty much you're going to leave the voice out of the community. So currently, the way it is set up right now, Kaibito has 5 board members. And so each of those 5 board members, we all swore an oath, both in Navajo and in English, to uphold our duties as board members and ensuring that our future leaders are provided the education that they are entitled to. So by doing this rushed, ill thought of plan to centralize all of our schools into one place shows the lack of the preparation of the Navajo Nation. And with the the Department of the Net Education supporting this as well should also be cautious. We should also be looking out for that. Again, just want to say that it takes away from local control. Our board members currently know what is going on at the schools. They know what needs to happen at the schools. They understand what needs to happen at the schools. By centralizing it, you're going to be out of place. So again, our school has is going to voice their opinion on this. We have drafted a resolution, and I'm pretty sure we will have a lot of our community members have come out to also voice their opposition in this. So I want to say thank you for providing me the time, Kat.
Thank you, Mr. Curley, for those comments. Just a reminder that to forward to your communities, there is a website that, or an email that they can send these comments to as well. And that is School Board, SCHOOLBOARD @Navajo-NSN.gov. And there is also a address, a PO box that these comments can be sent to. Let me see if I can, I don't have that right in front of me at the moment. Let me get that. And then at this time, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this topic?
This is Verna Yazzie.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Ms. Yazzie, you have 3 to
Yes.
5 minutes. State your
Hi.
name and your
I also like
area.
to say something.
Okay, I got Ms. Yazzie and I have Yolanda Ellis.
Yes,
Okay, you'll be after Ms. Yazzie.
thank you.
The floor is yours, Ms. Yazzie.
Okay. I'm a community member from Bird Springs and a registered voter there. But my question on this, I was a board member before, and I was working on a grant. And one of the things that the studies that I was looking at was, I know there's a big discussion about immersion of teaching, reteaching the students about their culture, although the language. While I was reading that, and most of them stated, the authors have cited that for the communities, they need to have that local control because they know how their environment is and they know how best to teach the students to relearn their language. So a lot of the studies were saying that. So what studies are being used to gear this this whole movement toward regionalizing board membership? I guess that's where I'm coming from, is that perspective, is what studies have been identified and what model is being used to cure this. So when there's the studies that I was looking at, these are academic studies that were done by some Navajo people and some other natives across the country, on Indian country, and out in Alaska as well as Hawaii. Are there studies to support what's happening? Is this really what's good for the community? Is this what's good for students? The language, but yet we're going to disrupt it right now by switching over to something completely different. Policies are going to change. Who knows, laws are going to be changed. I don't know if Title 10 has been changed, where it states that grant schools are community, they're controlled by the community. Local control, and it's in Title 10 now. Apportionment plan. So I've listened to this over the years as a previous board member, and I know this was one thing that they were hung up on, was Title 10, where it states it's local control. Although what studies support this recommendation. I can share my sites if you guys like, but I can share that information as well, of how keeping it local and providing these resources and using community members to teach and revitalize the language, that's stronger. And it also retains the students, because they were concerned about dropout rates too. When they get into high school, they're much stronger and they know who they are. Although when they get into college, they follow a few of them. One of the things that they also cited was most Native Americans only earn 2-year degrees after high school. And so they said right there that there was a different thing, was like doing dual enrollment. But that's a whole nother subject. But I guess what we do here, what's decided, will impact our students in the future. They may only go up to high school just because of this transition, although they may not know who they are. And if that happens, whose fault is that? We can't always say it's the parents, because we're talking about policy change, a shift. And so that's a community where we're dealing with a community paradigm, and now it's going to impact a lot of folks. And it's going to be a bit chaotic for a while before it settles down. It may seem like it's going to be a smooth transition, but I don't think so, based on what I've read. It's not going to be easy to do. And there's not a lot of studies across the country about this, but what is available supports that local community support and giving, because those people know exactly what is in their community and they know how to work with all of that and they know how to teach the kids with that. Studies are being used to promote this apportionment plan and the transition. So So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Yazzie. And just for everyone on the call, I am getting these questions down, and we will forward them to the our legislative council, our council delegates who may be on the line. But I wanted to give as much time as we can to the public to provide their feedback. So now I will go to Ms. Yolanda Ellis.
Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Ellis Berlin, and I'm the Untitled Chapter Vice President. I go ahead and share my concerns and comments. Yesterday we had our regular teleconference chapter meeting at Agri, and this very subject came onto, it was a resolution that came in, and we discussed it and we approved this resolution well, the resolution did state that objects to Navajo Nation Department of Diné Education to enter into Indian self-determination contract with BIE to contract out of all BIA funded schools and supports all Navajo Nation BIA funded schools to remain as BIE operated and grant schools and their governance to remain vested with the locally elected school boards. We approved it, but there was concerns and talks about that. So my concern that I brought out on this subject was that, so this BIE is going to remain as BIA education operated. And if it is a grant school, it will remain vested as such. So my concern was that before, well, we had some concerns and sort of oppositions to Kaibito going into a grant school a while back. And I did not really support that because I thought that we were having a good school. The BIE, Kaibito BIE school was a school that was going on for years and years. And all of a sudden the school board members or community members started to try to turn it into grant school. And I didn't really like the idea of that because all these years we had BIE and all of a sudden it's going into grant school. So I wasn't the only one that was in opposition of that. So yesterday I asked question. So if this really is going to come about, BIE remains BIE and grant schools remain vested within their the locally elected school board members. So yes, that's what's going to happen. So in the future, I look forward to leaving BIE as BIE and contract schools to be contract schools. So, and to have the school board members probably decrease them if possible. And if there's going to be monies to be saved, I think we only need 3 school board members or even 2 school board members to be working closely with the schools and not work against them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis, for those comments. So the next person I have is Ms. Eleanor Smith. And I do see Ms. Pino up there again. Ms. Pino, I will come back to you after I get through everyone. But I have you down. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
The floor
Can you hear me?
yours. Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Ja, she Eleanor Smith inishia. Not opne et kachini in shlonkia ani bashin. She dash chedo as she hate dash nella. It's not smastek on nasha. I am a former employee of the BIE. I've worked in and out of BIE schools and the at the agency levels, also in the superintendent's office for well over 17 years. Currently, I'm a full-time student pursuing my master's degree, but in education. But during the time that my time with BIE, I know that this subject had come up numerous times. You know, how the BIE was pushing to reapportion schools to reduce the number of school board members. And I know there was always opposition from the communities. And, you know, as a community member, I can see the benefits of having local school board control. And I support that. I am against this reapportionment plan. It doesn't benefit the school, the students, the parents, or the school board members, the community at large. So I'm not sure how in depth your plan is, but I know that both Bureau operated schools and grant schools, contract schools, they rely on their school boards to do their, especially the grant schools, to approve their hiring, to approve their budgets, you know, to approve their school improvement plans. There's many things that school boards have
I don't know.
function
I
and
just
roles.
gave you two numbers.
Hello?
1 second, Ms. Smith. We won't deduct your time here. Whoever's on the call, please mute your phones as you get on. Sorry for the interruption, Ms. Smith. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am in opposition, like I said, because the school board serves many functions to the schools, whether it be BIE operated or grant schools. In terms of hiring, in terms of budget, in terms of school improvement plans, in terms of, you know, just every function of the school. We normally, you know, get school board approval for any kind of changes or any kind of reports that have to go in. And so I'm just trying to see how that would function if schools were all grouped together, you know, under one school board. I just don't see how schools are going to be able to function without those approvals in a timely manner. So that's my main concern, and that's going to hold up a lot of things for schools. So that's my main concern there, because I was a former business manager, and I know there's many things that the school has to be there for a school. sometimes even at, an emergency basis, we have to call emergency meetings sometimes. And if there's only one school board for so many schools, especially with Eastern, I used to be at Eastern at the agency office. And at one time we had 17 schools, both bureau operated and grant under us. And that's a lot of schools to oversee. It was a huge job, but we used to oversee that many schools. And just to have one agency school board, just doesn't make sense to me. These schools have to operate on a day-to-day, monthly, weekly, monthly basis. To have those approvals in place from their school board is crucial for them. So those are my comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for those comments. I do have a new individual, last three number, okay, area code 505, last three number 010, with your hand up. You might need to press *6.
Hello?
Going once. Okay, there you go. We can hear you now. Please state your name and your community for the record. Thank you. You have 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Stephanie Brown. I'm from the Agri community in New Mexico. I am a parent, and I am in opposition of the Plan 6 because I am a concerned parent. Okay, so first of all, Mr. Nez and Lizer, what are you going to do about this? Our children's academics are more important than this Plan 6. We are in a pandemic. We need to keep it local. And this is still in litigation with courts. This is a political issue. Students and grandparents are being dragged into this. We need lawyers to represent us, parents, grandfathers, grandmothers, and students. When you look at schools in Utah cities with their school board, each city, we have Orem, Provo, we have Spanish Fork, American Fork. We have thousands of schools there in the Wasatch Front there. They have their own school board members. They don't have one school board member representing all these schools. So that is my concern there. I just don't know why we're getting dragged into this as grandparents, parents, and especially our students. And how is one school board member going to serve the communities? We have some in Sevier County, Richfield area, and then they have one school board coming this way to Lower Mountain at different areas there in Page. And you're talking, if something happens with one school, you're talking somebody's going to have to drive. I mean, these school boards have to drive hours to get to one school, and then they got to go this way again. So that's my concern. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown, for those concerns. I don't see anybody new on the call that would like to speak. If there's no one that has not spoken yet, I will go back. We do have Ms. Darlene Pino who would like to speak again. Is there anyone new? Going once, twice. Ms. Pino, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yet again, how much time do I have?
This time we have 1 minute. No, just kidding. We got 3 to 5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you. I had the standing committee, Mr. Daniel. So then Mr. Carl Slater, Mr. Paul Begay, then Purnell, Halana, Charlene, So, Edison J. Wanika, J. A. Hashin Sago, the Education Judge Standing Committee, the North. I know that I've seen Mr. Slater online. Craggy, earlier one of the ladies had mentioned the resolution that came before their chapter. Nazis on for those who didn't hear earlier. Nazis on Navajo Mountain Vice President the Inchke Darlene Pino. The same resolution, the same format came through our chapter. Although halit ola school board nikitate in testos. Arabella that osle ta hotoy unsupportive. Ako na hindi dilkit although sa na dikidiki eya khayla na sos khaydila. That resolution, that same resolution, school, the chapter, the community members, mado akui masanatan linita, the age khaydila, khayla is khaydila, the no any deal kit, khatish na sosina, the ne, jo adilto, ayu the husband go shilton khayate, khala asa to she asagi ni that oh ye. And unfortunately, it is quite a bit of a political side of things. Ako did the resolution we postponed it. A resolution because we wanted to know who actually wrote that resolution. Community members. What the school board said to us as a chapter officers were, you represent your community, you speak on behalf of your community. Although you make you're the leaders. Let's see. Ako she not this kid some of the community members, if they're for it. Say we're making a decision. It went back to not the kid. I don't they his one nas not so I suppose. Nikilcheho ata hale ila bini nation hat ola yeki itrango kweto resolution khaydi lala ako to ak tasa ta hlen kit no altsa sho eshis zin altsa sho tini altsa haya postpone al yada khajo be alhilna da hosil nan shin khaya di need hala there's both sides. There's going to be some family members that is for it. Some family members will be against it. And then each places our school boards, communities, the community, the local members voting. It sounds like it's going to go back to election office again. Should it go? Community members like I said, we're some of them when may be for it. I see the resolution
Thank you, Ms. Pino.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rico. The resolution that I was referring to is the one that NASDA had put together where they were asking the chapter, local chapter, to pass that resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pino. And as mentioned before, I am getting, I have staff on the line who are getting these questions together. And I'll give some time to any delegates who may be on the line later at the end. I want to focus on getting everybody's comments in. So are there anyone else? Oh, before I go to some, the next person, written comments can be forwarded to this PO box. It's PO Box 670, Window Rock, Arizona 86515. And attention to the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Attention school board in regards to the school board apportionment. There's also a fax number that they can fax these written comments to, and that is 928-871-7474. And just for the record, we do have Office of Legislative Staff and also Office of the Speaker staff who will be monitoring all these comments as they come through email and through mail through the PO box. And also, I guess if anybody is in the area, they could drop them off as well. Is there at this time, is there anyone else on the line who would like to speak on the school board apportionment Plan 6? If you're trying to speak, you might want to press *6 if you're calling in. Okay, I have a Janice Joey.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just introduce yourself and the community or organization that you're representing. You have 3 to 5 minutes. Floor is
Okay,
yours.
a quick question or a quick request for clarification before I make my comment. Is it possible to get a clarification as to what happened to the previous information? I know this whole process went through before, and when all the numbers were tallied, there was a majority. In fact, the minority, the least amount of votes was for Plan 6 at the time under this apportionment. Do you know why could we get clarification on why we're going through this process again? Is that possible?
Ms. Joy, let me see. Is Legislative Council on the line?
Manuel?
Yes, is this Mr. Haven?
Yeah, I am on the line listening. And can you clarify the question again? I apologize.
Okay, Ms. Joey, can you ask your question again? And this is Ron Haven with the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Okay, Mr. Haven, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clear.
Okay, I was asking for clarification. I know we went through this process before, over a year ago, in fact, before the pandemic hit, regarding this apportionment process. And the information that I had received at the end of it was indicating that the Plan 6 part of it, that option had received the least amount of votes Navajo nationwide. And then all of a sudden it goes to, and I do see a council delegate on the line also from HESI. Basically, my understanding was it went back to HESI, and then all of a sudden Plan 6 was approved. And then now we're back to this part of the process again, going back to the public hearings. So my question was clarification on what happened to the original numbers and information that were previously submitted and compiled. And why are we again initiating public hearing comments?
Go ahead, Mr. Haven.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rico. The question relates to Plan 6, and apparently what the concern is here for is that it was previously voted upon and discussed, and essentially what has occurred since the last public comment period is essentially you are aware of the lawsuit that has been filed concerning the plan. This is Plan 6. And under the election code, let me back up just a little bit here. I do apologize. Under the election code, it does indicate under there that public comments are provided. There's a period for that, and it does indicate there that there is a 60-day comment period, and the public is provided opportunity to provide comments, either like you all are doing now, or else by written comments, and those type of things are required for under the election code. There was some degree of disagreement with the process involved, and as I pointed out, there was a lawsuit, and essentially the court did indicate that they'd like to have the committee through the direction of the committee to have provide more public input, and that's why we are here in respect to soliciting comments and the opportunity for the comment period. It's up to the committee, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. It does have that authority under the election code to provide final authority over the plan, and essentially the court did indicate that we do need to provide more opportunity for the community members to provide input on this particular plan. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Thank you, Mr. Rico.
Thank you, Mr. Haven. Ms. Joey, you have 3 minutes left, and then I'll go on to the next person.
Okay, that does provide a little bit of clarification. I know I had attended one of the previous public hearings in person and, sat through quite a bit of information on that. And then it was pretty disheartening to see when it came to the committee level, the oversight committee, that it just seemed like all our concerns, objections, the information we had voiced back to our council members was just swept to the side, and Plan 6 was the option that was moved forward. But for myself as a parent, let me go back again. My name is Janice Joey. Nash Ejitaba Hunchle. Na Kudine Bashchin. Aro Twitchine Dashichedo, Sanahapikne Dashinale. I am a parent with the Kaibito boarding school, Get Me Todo Western Agency. It's kind of a two-pronged comment. Personally, I am in opposition, and I have always been, to the regionalization of the school boards. I have served on the school board before, and I understand that we're also, we have a couple of our current board members on. And a lot of the other comments I've heard, I agree with. You need the local input. You need to have that local control, and a lot of it would be taken away And there have been some very good points that have been brought up, and I hope the powers that be take those into consideration and consider, stepping this back and maybe coming up with another plan to phase in. I can also understand from the cost issue side, if dealing with finances for so many board members, which, hence maybe a phase plan would work better. Now, I know here and all over, we tend to talk about community input, local control, and kind of an aside. Our current board here in Kaibito has slots for 5 members, and yet only 3 of them are currently being occupied. And that also ties into another election issue where one of the positions is not filled. So I have seen, a board operate, our school is now, like I said, basically operating under 3 members. So and that kind of ties into the regionalization part for me. I'm trying to, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wu, for the questions and comments. Just to reiterate what I had explained at the beginning, the purpose of the hearings is primarily, and this was provided by our Office of, I believe our Office of Legislative Counsel. The purpose of the hearings is primarily for purposes of getting input and comments on Plan 6. The court has approved the plan, but is requiring more input and comment from the public. So that was just something I went over earlier at the beginning of this public hearing. So we have about 9 minutes left, but just, so you all know, these Zoom meetings will be happening, I believe, all week at the different locations. We will be having also the in-person meetings at the different chapters. Tomorrow will be in Chinle, and from 1 o'clock to 3, there will be the Zoom virtual public hearing. At this time, I don't see anybody on the board. So I would like to give time to Honorable. Go ahead. Who's this?
This is Eugene Zoning from Red Valley Chapter.
Okay.
I know I'm on a different agency.
No, it's fine. This is for everybody. Let me go to you. Let me go to you, and then we'll close out with Delegate. I think Delegate Slater is on the line. So just state your name and the community you're from.
Okay, my name is Eugene Zoning. I'm a Twachini, born for the I'm currently the Vice President for Red Valley chapter here in Red Valley, Arizona. And I've been listening to everyone's comment, and I think that this Plan 6 is very, it's not a good plan. I don't know why the Navajo Nation is involved with it. I think everything should stay the same with the school board and also the community being involved. I have a few family members and friends that are school board in the area. I think that they're doing a good job, planning for the children and also for the community. And just like I heard one of the comments from one of the gentlemen saying that why is Navajo Nation sticking their nose in it when they should be concerned about other things. That is very true, that they should be concentrating on how to get the revenue for the Navajo Nation, since our revenues for the plants, some of them are closed. So, they should be searching for more fundings for the people, since our revenue is very low currently with the Navajo Nation. And the school with the BIE should stay the same and should be the same as long as our students are getting educated, and also as well as this broadband that supposedly supposed to help with the community. And so that's my comment, and I've been listening, and I think a lot of people should be heard, and if needed, even a protest should be brought up if necessary, in Window Rock to say no to Plan 6. Thank you, and that's all I will have to say.
Thank you for those comments and questions. Now I will go to, oh, we have one more up here. Carmelita, Chief?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yate Arnoldsa. My name is Carmelita Chief. Adona Enishlinigi Eya Kinlichini Nishlondo. Look at the Abashachin Ado Hanagandi Dashachedo, Yaidina Tachini Dashanala Katawasan Inishla. I am currently the Vice President of the Kayenta Boarding School Board. And like Mr. Bedoni said before me, I've been listening to all of the comments and being all of them into stride, because at first I wasn't really sure where I stood on the plan. At the current moment, I feel like I can confidently say that I'm not in full support of Plan 6. I understand that there needs to be a happy medium between, on one hand, making sure that we are prioritizing efficiency and cost effectiveness, and we know how weighty in terms of cost paying for school board functions, trainings, workshops, all of that can amount to, when that money should be going towards the education of our children. But on the other hand, I do understand the very important nature of making sure that community members have a voice, that they feel connection to the school at the local level. So in my mind, I'm thinking, as I'm looking at this Plan 6, specifically for Western Agency, it's a 5-member board, and I don't think that's adequate in terms of having community voice in shaping the education of our children. That number needs to be doubled, at least doubled, to have one representation for Kayenta, Danahoto, Chilchembeto. It's not enough. So I would envision like 2 or maybe even 3 for Kayenta. So I think at the very least, that number needs to be doubled for that board for Western Agency. I just want to make a comment also on the process of all of this. It's very difficult to find information about the timeline of this progression of the reapportionment plan. Somebody had stated before, like they had a question about why, what was the outcome of a previous plan? Why are we still at the board talking about this? And I think the council or DOTI or whoever is in charge of providing information about this plan needs to put all the information in one single spot on the web so that it's easily accessible, so that us community members and leaders, decision makers, can have all of that information readily accessible in one place, so that we can make those informed determinations on our own and advocate, and so that we can advocate more effectively towards the leaders who are making this decision for us, for the schools, and for the children and the families of the children who go to that school. I also just want to state that I think what needs to also be accounted for is that there seems to be a large distrust, public distrust of DOTI. And I think that is also preventing people from probably, getting on board with a regionalization plan as well. Because if we don't have responsive people at the administration level, it just causes frustration. It just causes a whole bed of negative attitudes, feelings, that breeds hopelessness in terms of how can I adequately advocate for my children's or our students' needs and the concerns when nobody's getting back to me at the central level. Nobody's answering my questions. Nobody's providing me with the information that I need. Just flat out, it's ridiculous, the non-responsiveness that happens at that office, at that division. So I know that we have council leaders, council members who are on the board, also board members from the Navajo Nation Board of Education. I think that really needs to be taken into account, is making sure that those administrators are responsive to the public, because like I said, going back to my initial statement, we need a happy medium between the two. We need the regionalization, but we need it to be effective, and we need to make sure that there is ample room for community voice. And all of that narrows down to communication and responsiveness. So right now, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chief, for that, for those comments. And at this time, we are pretty much at the end of our public hearing, the virtual public hearing. And I want to turn the time over to Honorable Vice Chair Carl Slater, who's on the line, who can respond to the comments and questions. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rico. And I just want to say ahead to everyone for participating in this and providing dialogue and feedback. It's really important for the committee to hear, and we're listening. There is a lot of logic and thought to this process, and the needs for, I think, changing our educational system to get better academic outcomes for our children. And the committee is going to continue to receive feedback at least through September 30th and maybe later. So I highly encourage everyone to get friends or family or other community members to continue to participate this week. There are going to be the virtual sessions in the afternoons, and then there's going to be the in-person ones that will take place in the morning. And those are presented, in the information where you found the call-in information for here. But I think, it's worth providing to everyone who's listening some of the rationale and the reasons that the committee has considered this, and some of the ideas that have informed this thought process. So for those of you who don't know me, Kia Ani, She'e Sontene Bashashin, Tinajani, Edashache, Sontene Edashanele, She'e Carl Russell Slater Dashajane, Tinakana Nasha. So I'm Carl Slater, I'm Kia Ani, born for the Jewish people, and I live in Round Rock, Arizona, and I represent Rough Rock, Wakachukai, Saley Wheatfields, Rock Point, and Round Rock on the council, and I serve as vice chair of the HES committee. The rationale for some of the consolidation is that I think we currently spend between about $1 million to $2 million on school boards each year for training, stipends, et cetera. And while that funding does have a separate provenance for the 297 schools, ultimately that is money for Indian education, and it's money for Navajo students. So in the end, we could go back to Congress and say, well, this should actually be reprogrammed for the purposes of improving the educational attainment of our students. In general, across the Navajo Nation school system, whether it's BIE or contract schools, we don't see increasing performance in educational attainment in the grades, in students' preparedness for college. And we also see a lot of other issues where you can have a business manager from one school get fired for financial impropriety, and because the school did not seek to press charges, that paper trail doesn't stick with that person, and they move from school to school to school embezzling. We all know this from firsthand knowledge or from reports in the papers. By having consolidated school boards, you'll have uniform accountability and oversight across these systems. And those issues about policies, about regulations, those same functions will be assumed by these school boards. And so when you talk about the issue of, well, how will it get done? It will move to this school board. We have a lot of issues across the Navajo Nation with nepotism. And when you have school boards that are controlled by few members from smaller communities, it's very easy for them to influence the hiring decisions of the staff and leadership of schools and create these little fiefdoms. We've seen it happen before, it's been documented. Doesn't mean it happens everywhere. But if we want to approach our education system and say that this is a system where we can share resources, have uniform policies, and uniform goals for ensuring accountability, this is a way to move us in that direction. So what does staying the same do? I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. We could keep the same thing, same old, same old. It hasn't been proven to improve the academic performance of our children. as a system. Maybe in some instances, you get a good board in for 4 years or so, and you're able to increase educational academic success. But as a system across the whole nation, we really need to think about what can we do to shake things up and make it better. Some of that is diverting more resources into the schools. Some of it is some of the policy work that we're discussing right now. So if you have one person who's representing multiple communities, they have to be accountable to more than just one constituency. They can't just rely on one family from one chapter to get them elected and then control a school. They have to be responsive to multiple chapters. And that's kind of a principle in political philosophy and governance, is that if you have to include multiple constituencies, it makes people more accountable so that they can't just enforce personal preference or personal privileges within a system, a school, a government, etc. And I think it is a really good point about balancing representation and also thinking about the efficiency of board decision-making. Having 10-member boards is just about unheard of in really any educational governing system. And if you look at the way that the public schools on the county sides, in the unified school districts, at the state level, those districts have more students than, their individual districts have more students than all of the BIE system. And they're able to do that with a 4 to 5 member board, sometimes even a 3-member board. And you see better educational attainment there. So if you ask for studies, if you ask for theory behind this, that's an example right there. Gallup-McKinley County Schools, Chinle Unified School District. What do? No stipends, you have to meet at the school. No Native American Grant School Association meetings in Las Vegas or Flagstaff or elsewhere. The money is spent on the children. The governance is still local, but there's more accountability because you have to be responsive to multiple communities. Now, the BIE schools and the community schools are unique in that they are supposed to be tailored to, I would say, the more rural communities on the Navajo Nation. And I believe strongly that we should have those sorts of accommodations across the nation. But we need to balance that with efficiency, accountability, with oversight. And so the comment about having to drive long distances between different schools, I think that's a good point. But if everybody on that board has to travel in maybe a rotating fashion each month, or I don't think you need to meet monthly, as many people do. You know, these public schools are able to meet quarterly with one, say, annual meeting or something to that effect. There can still be, I believe, local control. And there's nothing to say that the new school boards can't have any sort of advisory councils or mechanisms for public input. So lastly, when we have these, I shouldn't say lastly, but when we have these vacant board positions, it is very costly and cumbersome to the Navajo Nation to conduct these special elections. And we can have dozens and dozens of vacant positions at one time. It's very hard to coordinate and to conduct those special elections all across the Navajo Nation. And that's not just something about a local community. It's about a local community's financial burden to the nation. If someone steps down, if someone's caught embezzling, if someone is not fulfilling their duties and they have to be removed, it ends up having an effect across the entire system, because that's money that could be going to things such as economic development, as was mentioned. But if we want to talk about economic development, we need to be efficient in our use of resources. And having multiple boards is not an efficient system, and it doesn't provide uniform accountability. So if we want to look at where are we going, what is the future in this theory, I think it would be good to adopt the Diné School Accountability Plan. I also think it would be important to 638 the Navajo area BIE functions so that the nation can assume control and be in the driver's seat. When we talk about unresponsiveness from DOTI and from BIE, It's because BIE is not accountable to Navajo Nation political elected leadership. They're not accountable to school boards. They're only accountable to their chain of command. When we talk about DOTI, all the previous councils, I think since maybe the mid-90s, have just shrunk their budget over and over and over and over. So we're shrinking the thing that we're requesting responsiveness from. And yet at the same time, people do not want to invest in that entity to provide the resources that they desire for their communities. So this is a complicated matter. And I really ask in closing that everyone, if you're going to continue to make comments this week, and I'll encourage you to do so, and to the best of my ability and my schedule, I'll listen to you. And I'll, of course, read all these comments and they'll be compiled. Don't talk about control. Talk about the students. And don't use them as a political prop. And don't use the grandparents as a political prop. How is maintaining the system going to improve the academic success, the financial stability, and the future viability of the Navajo Nation? We asked as a committee 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, it was at the beginning of 2020, to many people at Twin Arrows and to Grant School Association, to all sorts of entities, meet us halfway. Help us design a system with your input. Maybe it would be phasing it. It could be a whole number of different issues. Instead, what the committee and the councils met with was a lawsuit. It was a lawsuit to maintain the status quo, and it did not discuss educational performance. All it talked about was control. Control. So I ask, what is maintaining the status quo going to do for our children? And if there's a better way to do this, had over a year now to convey that to the council, to elected leadership. And instead, it's been obstinance. And it's been wild accusations. We wanted to make this more harmonious, and we asked for that sort of input to figure things out. To figure out what is student-centered learning? What are the responsibilities of school board members? How are they evaluated? How do you apply performance measures onto them in the school system? So I'm still open to listen to those ideas, but please be specific and make sincere recommendations. Ashahat.
Thank you, Vice Chair Slater. And with that, it is now 3:12. For everyone on the call, I would like to thank everyone for, keeping these comments respectful and, working towards, this, addressing this issue. Any concerns, we're in this together as Office of Legislative Services and in the Office of the Speaker. We're here to facilitate these meetings. So if there was issues with the telephone number, I heard that earlier. That was, it's the same number that's been used for the Health, Education, and Human Services committee meetings. But if you have any other written comments you would like to submit, there's 2 ways that I have right here. You have the school board at navajo-nsn.gov email. You also have the P.O. Box 670, Window Rock, Arizona 86515. You also have a fax number 928-871-7474. And with that, for everyone on the call, you are welcome to join us again tomorrow, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The in-person public hearing will be at Chinle. Let me see if I have, I believe after Chinle, it might be Shiprock or Crown Point. But I will get that whole list out tomorrow when we get on again. With that, I will close this public hearing. Thank you for all that were in attendance, and you can join again tomorrow.